business.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Oh my gosh, I leave for 2 weeks. I have 2 weekends of familial obligations, and what the heck happens? The entire world turns upside down. So, first of all, as a warning, I'm going to let you know the dog's going to start barking here in just a second because the family will be returning back to the studio. So don't be surprised when that comes. But first of all, we have, what's happened in the last 2 weeks? There's so much to talk about, so much. I mean, we are talking about, what could possibly be one of the most foreign policy decisions and functionality that's taken hold at one of the worst in history. We have the Department of Homeland Security calling out people, specifically American people, who do a couple of 2, 3, 4 different things. We have, that's just starting. And then we have, we even have the former California governor, the gubernator, coming out and telling us that we need to screw our freedom. I mean, what in the heck? What in the heck? And you know what? I actually had a broadcast planned for the first week that I took off on age limits and voting. And you know what? I'm gonna table that for another day because there is just way too much going on for us to have to spend a lot of that. That one's really in particular. It's kind of an issue for me. So I'm going to hold off on that. That'll probably be next week's show maybe. But anyway, oh my gosh, I cannot believe what in the heck is going on. All right. First of all, before I get too deep into things happening, I want to thank everyone for joining. I have YouTube. I have my Facebook page. I'm streaming to my Facebook page. Hello, everybody. Also, for those who are joining the audio portion of the program on Spreaker, I don't really have a way to get information from you yet. I'm working on that. But that being said, I do appreciate you joining tonight and listening to the broadcast, either on live or replay, whichever way it happens to be. For all of my subscribers and listeners, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, because without you, this show would not be possible. So let me go ahead and dispense with one little formality. If you've seen my last couple of broadcasts, I became an ambassador for this spot coming up. I became an ambassador for, and I got to turn it on here. Hold on. Oh my goodness. See, I'm out of practice here. Totally out of practice. Okay. So I became an ambassador for the NCCA. So let me go ahead and get that started here. So if you honor and value our God-given right to self-defense by owning a firearm and would appreciate joining a community of like-minded individuals who welcome firearm owners of all experience levels, then you should consider joining the NCCA. The National Concealed Carry Association, NCCA, exists to serve the Second Amendment community by providing a nationwide network of Second Amendment advocates, offer elite self-defense and concealed carry training from the nation's top instructors, and provide rock-bottom prices on the best selection of gear and accessories. NCCA members enjoy shopping thousands of products with zero dealer markup, unlimited free shipping, and keep more money in their pockets with zero credit card processing fees. The NCCA encourages safe, responsible concealed carry and celebrates those who are brave enough to protect not only themselves, but their families and their communities. If this sounds good to you, visit nationalconcealedcarryassociation.com to join today. As a special bonus, use my affiliate link, ncca.ref, as in Frank, r.cc/Rick02 to receive a code for 10% off any purchase at National Concealed Carry Association, all one word, .com. Once again, use my affiliate link, ncca.ref as in Frank r.cc/Rick02 and receive a code for 10% off your purchase at nationalconcealedcarryassociation.com. Visit National Concealed Carry Association, all one word, all lowercase.com to find out more today. All right. Thank you, NCCA. I appreciate being as soon as I can find it, I appreciate being a brand ambassador. All right. Holy smokes. What the heck is going on in the world today? I mean, I knew that we were drawing down from Afghanistan. I knew that. I mean, the whole purpose of us being there for the last 20 years, honestly, has modified and changed throughout the time that we've been around in country. And honestly, I just want to say for anybody who has gone over there and served, for any veteran who has gone over there and served, especially for the ones that have come back, shall we say, less than whole. I want to tell you, regardless of what is happening right now, regardless of what occurs and what the next steps are in terms of foreign policy, the American people, at least I, appreciate everything that you did, because regardless of what anybody else says, for 20 years, we have had no terror attacks on American soil since 9/11, which was the whole purpose of going in there. We have had relative safety and security from terrorist attacks from that region for the last 20 years because of the work that you people did over there. And from the bottom of my heart, I can tell you, as far as I'm concerned, this is, you guys did not fail. You did not fail. You men and women did not fail over there. So I can't say that, and I can't stress that enough. Now, being a former service member myself, I can tell you what a complete crap show. And it's hard. It's really hard for me to grasp the whole purpose of going over there and doing all those things and then coming out without any kind of a sensible plan. Now, for those of you that are out there who have been kind of maybe tracking some of this, yes, Trump does bear some responsibility for the pattern, the way that some of the stuff that was done right before he left his administration as a part of this. But one thing that you need to understand is that the things that he did, they were conditional upon the Taliban doing certain things, doing certain conditions. And when the Taliban didn't follow through with those conditions, I believe, and unfortunately the timing was such that Trump ended up leaving office and we had the whole election debacle. So he ended up focusing, not that I'm trying to cover for him, but he ended up focusing here locally rather than over there. And so we ended up in a situation where Biden had to take the reins. Now, all Biden realistically would have had to do, honestly, is try to hold the Taliban's feet to the fire. He has not done that, literally and figuratively, both. He has not done that. And for what his press conferences where he is saying that he wasn't aware, that he believed that the Taliban with their 300,000 troops, or I'm sorry, that the Afghan army with their 300,000 troops would have been able to hold back the Taliban. I mean, all of that is a figment of his imagination because of the fact that there were several people within his organization, within his admin, who were saying, even General Miley, who is, realistically no favorite of mine right now, but even General Miley pointed out that the Taliban would take over very quickly. So one thing that we have had, and I'm getting this, understand this is not from personal experience. I never went over there. I've never been there. However, that being said, I have heard from several people, both first, second, and third hand, who have been over there, who basically have the knowledge and the understanding of the situation on the ground. The Afghan army literally was not much of an army. And we trained them in a way that we had to support them from an air strike situation, meaning that we supported them with airdrops for food, supplies. We supported them with airstrikes from drones and sometimes even helicopters. You know, we supported them in a purely support capacity for probably close to the last year, maybe year and a half. And during that time, okay, for the last year and a half, during that time, we've only had roughly 2,500 troops actually on the ground in Afghanistan doing this job, doing the support role. And so honestly, I mean, for us to have just packed up and left was a bit of a shock, not only from them, but also some of the contractors that were over there. I mean, we pulled complete support. We had contractors there to help them, you know, work on the aircraft equipment that they had over there in order for them to take over. All of our contractors just took off in the middle of the night in some cases, in the case of Bagram Air Force Base. And this whole debacle, honestly, was I mean, it was completely thoughtless. It wasn't even planned. It wasn't planned out. It wasn't followed through with original ideas. Now, I understand, you know, we've been over there for 20 years. It's time for our troops to come home. This was something that Trump not only ran on, but he also was part of some of the drawdown. We actually have been drawing down troops consistently since Obama's second term. We've been consistently trying to back out of a situation that realistically, I don't necessarily agree that we should have been a part of in the first place. I understand why we did it. That being said, I think the mission changed over time. It wasn't very clear. It wasn't a very clear mission to begin with when we first went in there, but the mission changed over time. And because of that change, we ended up with a situation where we kind of had no other choice. We eventually would have had to pull out sooner or later based on the political climate. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that. And the reason that I say that I don't agree with that is because of the fact you've got to look at the strategic advantages that we had, in particular with Bagram Air Base. Bagram Air Base, for those of you that don't know, is out in the mountains. It is not in Kabul itself. It is out in the mountains. It is isolated. It is potentially defensible for the most part. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but it definitely is a good position to be in as far as defense is concerned. So we could have conceivably kept Bagram, not only kept Bagram for the withdrawal, but also kept Bagram for the long term. You also have to understand too that the Taliban hasn't really been able to mount any massive offensive because we were there. So even though even though it was 2,500 troops, for the last 18 months, there was not a single American life lost in Afghanistan. Now, you know, people would say, well, continuing with troops in a foreign country, that just isn't something. But I need to point out to you, we have troops in Japan since World War II. We've had troops in Germany since World War II. In fact, I personally participated in an exercise that took us back to Germany. That was how I got to visit Germany while I was in doing my service. So, you know, we consistently have troops in several countries across the globe: Qatar, Turkey, the United Arab Emirates. We have bases. We have people there. So, you know, realistically, don't give me this idea that this wasn't a continuation. I mean, honestly, it's because of the way that I think it was presented to us and presented to the American people as to why we were, you know, that this war had been going on. For the last 7 or 8 months, reportedly, there were somewhere around 50,000 Afghan troops that have been killed fighting the Taliban with our support. So it's not as though they haven't been fighting. The problem was that when they realized that their support structure had completely been taken out, think of it as a foundation of a house. If the foundation disappears or is built on shifting sand, it's not going to stand up. It's going to eventually fall. And pretty much that's what happened here. We walked away. We walked away with with basically nothing to support them. We actually left. There's reports of Bagram. We actually left in the middle of the night. We took off, and with nobody the wiser. And we expected that the government was going to be able to handle themselves. Now, the other problem that we have too is that and this was, you know, I'm going to be honest with you. I've told you before, I'll call him out on it, but this was Trump's mistake. Reportedly, Trump didn't even include the Afghan government as a part of the negotiations with the Taliban. Now, I don't know if that's entirely true, but if he did, that was incredibly stupid. I mean, you definitely, that delegitimized the government over there. And Kirk, I'm going to get to your point in just a second because that is coming. So realistically, us pulling out in the middle of the night, we pulled out with, and we left a bunch of crap there. Honestly, I don't know where anybody in part of command structure was seriously thinking this through, where we just walked off. There's a video that I saw, and I'm a little leery. I'll be honest with you. Last week's copyright thing kind of got me, so I got to figure out how to incorporate more, more videos and screen clips and things like that with proper copyright, so I don't get dinged. But to be honest with you, there was a video that came out from a contractor who had walked Bagram Air Base after we pulled out, and he was showing stacks of M4s, stacks of personal protective gear, armor, body armor, stacks of helmets, all kinds of trucks and Toyota bulletproof pickups and things like that. In fact, that's even been confirmed now because there was a photo that was released today from the Taliban where they had Taliban fighters dressed up in our gear, like our uniforms, our weapons, our body armor, standing in front of a vehicle that was painted that was presumably bulletproof. So now it's at the point now where we can't even tell for sure whether these people, who have this stuff, whether they're friend or foe. So this has actually made it a little bit worse. Another thing that you need to understand as well is that apparently for all of that equipment, people are like, well, why didn't we just destroy the equipment? Well, to be honest with you, I've heard reports, unconfirmed, but I've heard reports that the reason they left it there is because it cost less to leave it than it was to actually bring it back home. Now, I'm not entirely sure about that, but if it is possible, I mean, I can't understand why we didn't at least just try and destroy it. We didn't pop, a couple of high temperature grenades or something inside them to make them unusable. But for whatever reason, the decision was made to go ahead and leave all of that equipment. That aside, it's worse than just the equipment because we're hearing reports now, and this was called out, but we're hearing reports now that they have control of, excuse me, biometric equipment that has the faces and biometrics of Afghans who have not only learned to pilot the aircraft, but have also been ones who have helped us throughout the time because we were using biometrics and facial recognition as an example in order to identify friend or foe over there. Okay, so now the Taliban has all of this information, and it's not just the equipment, it's all of the intelligence and the data gathering. If you haven't heard yet, they're going from house to house and they're trying to find these people, and they're basically, as far as we know, they're basically executing them. Now, let me take a second because one of my listeners, Kirk, from the YouTube channel, has popped up and said, from what I understand, Afghanistan does not exist as a country with a unifying government. It is made up of tribal communities. That is 100% correct. And that is why, realistically, that is like the major reason as to why the army fell apart so quickly. I mean, we helped them, we supported them, yes, but you've got to understand, Afghanistan as a country only exists on a map with the borders that it does because somebody drew it there. As far as these people are concerned, they are very, very much tribal. They have been tribal for many, 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 many generations. And so having a central unifying government, this is nothing, has nothing to do with what the Western cultures in the Western sense of a unifying country actually is about. I mean, here in America, we talk about, nationalism, pride, patriotism, being patriotic. We celebrate, our independence from England on the 4th of July. There is a lot of activities within our history and within our culture that are focused on being a nation and being the United States of America. And there are still plenty of people who believe this, who take this to heart very seriously. But over there, they've been nothing but tribal. I mean, the whole idea of Afghanistan as a country, as far as they're concerned, doesn't even exist. And so they have several different factions. This is not very much unlike the in Iraq, where you have the Sunnis and the Shiites and how they used to fight. But the only reason why Iraq kind of worked as a country is because you had the overarching dictator above him or above them, who basically brought them together and unified. And this is basically where the Taliban comes into play. Now, the Taliban by themselves are religious extremists. They want strict Islamic law put in place. And it is because of this as to why we have such a hard time dealing with these people, because of the fact that they are religious extremists. Now, I'm not arguing. I'm not going to try and throw up a point or say anything about the whole idea dealing with, whether religious extremism is great or not, because to be honest with you, here in the Western world, we tend to associate with Western ideologies and Western thought processes, and we try to put them onto other cultures in our interactions with them. And we need to understand, unfortunately, that regardless of what we believe or what we think, these people who are elsewhere, they all believe and think, and they have their own other cultures. They have other things that concern them. They are different in thought. It's no different than trying to interact with, let's say, the Chinese as an example, or even the Japanese when we first started interacting with them. There is a culture difference, and that culture difference in Korea, Vietnam, they're all the same in terms of the Asian cultures. They have a different thought process. They're taught to think differently. They don't necessarily follow the Western thought process. And the reason that I know this is because, when I went to Shanghai for a job, I was talking to this one lady. She was part of the team. She was from China, and she did understand English, and it was kind of cool. But we were sitting there talking, and I made a comment about some of the Chinese phrases that I was attempting to learn. And when I told her what I was trying to learn, she looked at me and she literally told me, she's like, well, we don't talk that way. We don't use those pleasantries. For us in the Western world, we think, saying hello, how are you? Those kinds of things are important to us because that opens up the door for communication, for us to be able to speak on what would be considered a Western culture. But what she informed me was the fact that they don't think that way. They don't talk that way. For them, there isn't any pleasantries. It's just get to your business and get it done. It was all about efficiency for them. And so, saying, hi, how are you? Hope you have a good day. A lot of those things were not they weren't even thought about within the culture. And so, we as Westerners, we need to understand that this is the difference. I mean, honestly, this is the difference in cultures across the world. But yet for some arrogant reason, and I'm using the term arrogant on purpose, but for some arrogant reason, we tend to apply Western thought processes to other cultures. And we think that just because we think this way, that everybody else thinks this way. And they don't. They're not only influenced by other things, some even more important and more, shall we say, primal in nature than what we have in the industrialized Western world. And so we have to understand that over in Afghanistan with these people, I mean, yes, we put together an Afghan army, but to be honest with you, I mean, the expectation of us to be able, and even, Joe Biden saying, oh yeah, well, the Taliban only have 75,000 troops and, the Afghan army has 300,000, they should be fine. Unfortunately, that belies a Western thought process, because these people, many of them reportedly coming out of there, many of them only showed up because they wanted a paycheck. They were getting paid to be a part of the Afghan army. They were gaining money. And to them, that is survival, because now they have money to be able to spend on things that they need or want in order to keep surviving. Well, this is not to say that this is wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong. I don't want anybody to say to say that I'm saying it's wrong. This is just a difference in thought from one culture to another. And so, for them, when they lost everything, they lost all of our support. They lost, they knew we were being pulled out. That was the other thing that was really kind of strange, was that he announced this timeline. He announced this, we're going to do it by X date. All that did was trigger the Taliban to go ahead and start their plot. And the Taliban, whether you know it or not, they are barbaric. They are what we in the Western culture and Western world would consider completely barbaric. Their thought processes are that women have no standing, period. That children and women can be used as slaves. You want to talk about slavery? That's where it is. That's one place within this world where it exists. And they want to, marry young women off to the Taliban fighters, the young male Taliban fighters. And there is no equality. There is no, there's no having a woman equal to a man in their culture, in their society, the way that they want to run things. That is not their way. And so because of that, honestly, I feel like we did a really big disservice by pulling out the way that we did. See, one thing you need to understand is that reportedly, and I'm saying reportedly because I don't know this, but reportedly the average age in Afghanistan right now is 18 years old. We've been over there for 20 years. Okay. So think about that for a second. Even if somebody was over the age of 20 over there, they probably don't remember that much of Taliban control in that area. A lot of these younger people that you see that are starting to come, that are on the photos and are trying to come to the airport and trying to get out, they've only heard stories about how bad this actually is going to be. They have not lived under that control. They have gotten their taste of what the Western world is like. And this, if you could even imagine, if somebody were to come, even here realistically, after you're like 20, 25 and turn your world upside down and turn it into something that you've never, ever known. This is a travesty of epic proportions, regardless of what anybody thinks. Whether it was Trump doing it or whether it was Biden doing it, honestly, the entire thought process was completely misinformed and uneducated, in my opinion. Now, Some people would ask me, well, what would you want to do? Would you want to stay there? I don't necessarily want to stay there. But one thing to kind of keep in mind is that we have reportedly 900 soldiers, 900 troops in Syria right now. Now, that being said, why? We've had 18 months of no deaths in Afghanistan. Hardly any engagements with the Taliban while we were over there. We were supporting Afghan troops. And honestly, for about the past year or so, it's reportedly been a stalemate over there. I honestly can't figure out why we wouldn't want to keep a status quo. Do me a favor, look up, sometime if you've of interest, look up where Afghanistan is in relation to someplace like, for an example, China. Now, China is very close to Afghanistan. In fact, it borders part of it with it. And we don't have any air bases. This whole concept that Biden is throwing out of over the horizon stuff, we've got nothing. The closest thing, once we completely pull out of Afghanistan, yes, we have an air base in Pakistan, but the only reason that we've been sitting there is because of the fact that we've been in Afghanistan. There are already reports talking about how the Pakistan government is looking to get rid of us in conjunction with the Taliban. So what we end up with is a literal black hole, once again, a literal black hole of no intelligence whatsoever. The Taliban will do whatever they want. There's already reports of ISIS popping back up again, and they are in Afghanistan. So, completely lost any kind of strategic advantage for the war on terror over there. Absolutely, completely lost it. Once we finally get out, it is going to be completely gone. The embassy is gone. We have no staging area in terms of Bagram Air Base. We have no staging area once Pakistan closes. This was a strategical nightmare to take this out. Now, let's step one step further. As soon as we announced that we were leaving, immediately Russia and China have reportedly been making inroads to the Taliban. Now, the Taliban are not going to be too happy with Russia because of what they were fighting Russia many years beyond. I think it's like 40 years ago. So realistically, they're probably going to look toward China. Well, supposedly, one of the largest lithium deposits is actually in the land that we call Afghanistan. And what does China want to do? China wants to make batteries. They are the number one supplier of batteries for all of our special electric vehicles that we've got and all of our electronics. They need that lithium. They need that deposit. And so what are they going to do? They're going to help the Taliban with whatever it is that they want. They're going to help them. They're going to supply them with munitions. They're going to help them in other ways. These people in Afghanistan, the Taliban has absolutely no interest in being part of the international world stage. They honestly don't. They are completely tribal and feudal. They want nothing to do with the outside world. And so what are they going to do? Well, they're going to gain whatever it is that they want to get out of China or Russia or anybody, honestly. And they're going to do it in such a way that they're going to give away whatever resources that they have because it means nothing to them. They don't want the Western world there. So, I'm sorry, you can defend, Joe Biden. We can defend our government completely on this entire debacle. You can defend him as much as you want. You can try to blame Trump as much as you want. Trump actually started this. So I can pretty much say that as far as the beginnings movement and the idea and putting it in the idea of the American people of leaving that place, honestly, that's all on him. He's got to deal with that. But at the same time, Biden spent the first several months of his administration getting rid of all kinds of executive orders and deals and trade deals and everything else that Trump had brokered before he left. So there is absolutely no reason why Biden could not have just said, you know what, I don't honor this agreement because I didn't make it. It's not the first time that that has happened in history. So realistically, I cannot sit here and dismiss Joe Biden's complacency with this entire thing. All he wanted was he wanted to win. Realistically, that's the only thing that it makes sense to us, is that he wanted to pull out by a certain date. He wanted to keep his word on that date. That's what he wanted. And to be honest, I mean, even Trump was saying we could pull out by May, and Biden's the one that pushed it back to September. So, you know, for anybody trying to defend Joe Biden on this, or any of his administration on this entire that followed along with this whole deal, is you have no leg to stand on. There's no foundation for you to stand on. This was a complete debacle. This is going to turn into something pretty much, as far as I'm concerned, if we can't get enough Americans out, and it looks like they're the based on what the Biden administration has been talking about in all their press conferences, they're talking about the date is being the most important thing. August 31st being the most important thing. And if they do that, this is going to turn into, honestly, another Iran embassy problem that happened back with Jimmy Carter, I believe it was. So, you know, to be honest with you, this is probably the most foreign policy flub that I think that we've seen within the last probably 40, 50, 60 years. I mean, this is insane. And then to even carry it one step further, we actually have, Joe Biden mentioned in his press conference that that our allies, nothing's changed with them. But yet you've also, I don't know if anybody has seen, but in London, Parliament, they were having conversations, they were having speeches where they were talking about how in the heck did the U.S. do this? Why did they do this? What in the heck is happening? Same thing with Germany. Germany is the same way. Now he may have talked to them during the I think it's the G7 or G20, whatever summit that he was at over in Europe. But to be honest with you, even if he did mention it, I'm sure he didn't have any kind of set dates. He didn't have anything. He basically bunked this up big time. And I'm sorry, but I don't see where Kamala Harris is stepping in at all, because right now she's over in Singapore and Vietnam doing a tour. And when she gets back, she's reportedly going to start campaigning for Gavin Newsom's recall campaign. So no, I'm sorry, but right now I just don't see where the White House is even coming from. The whole administration is completely gone berserk. And to be completely honest, this is absolutely insane. This is nuts. This is horrible. Coming from a former military person, I can tell you that if we end up leaving people over there, if we end up leaving Americans again, this is even worse than Benghazi, as an example. I don't understand it. You just don't leave people. And they could have potentially, as an option, kept Bagram open, closed the embassy, moved everybody to Bagram Air Base. It was a better defensible position. It's reportedly a better position for these large C-17s and military aircraft to get out. There's only one runway at Kabul airport. Over in Bagram, I think they have maybe 2 or 3. And it's also a much better defensible position. Now, yes, I am Monday morning quarterbacking. Totally get it. I'm right there with you. I am Monday morning quarterbacking. So now the question is, what do we do? Well, I can tell you what the French, I can tell you what the British are doing. They're sending special forces troops in to go get their people. What are we doing? So far, we've been told that Marines are on their way. When they did arrive, I've received confirmation of a sorts from a couple different sources that the Marines have arrived in Kabul at the airport. What else are they doing? Well, I can tell you that the State Department put out a memo that basically said, we can't protect you until you get to the airport. And unlike what Biden is saying, I can tell you that there are several reports of Americans getting their passports stolen, American women in particular getting whipped and beaten before they even get through all of these checkpoints that the Taliban have thrown up. My understanding is there's about 8 separate checkpoints from the embassy all the way to the airfield. Now, I just saw a report that there is an alternate route being set up for these people to get there. But again, they never should have been in that position. They never should have been there. We should have had enough troops and enough personnel to make absolutely certain that we did a safe extraction from the embassy to a secured location such as Bagram Airfield. We should have done it. And granted, yes, it's, Bagram is significant, is a significant difference. So I think I heard one report from somebody saying it's like a 40-minute helicopter ride, but that is preferable to the situation that we have now in Kabul, where we don't even have, in some cases, may not even be a long enough runway. And there's people flooding the runway. I mean, I'm sure we've all seen the images, the horrifying images of those bodies, those people falling off the aircraft. And to have Joe Biden have the audacity to basically tell one of his sycophants, George Stephanopoulos, however you pronounce his freaking last name, to have him tell George that, why does that matter? That's 4 or 5 days ago, when it actually occurred 2 days ago from the time of the interview. This is ridiculous. And he's also, I've heard reports, I don't know if this is entirely true, but I've also heard reports that back when he was vice president, he basically said, forget a safe exit. Let's just pull him out. Let's just get rid of him. Let's just leave him over there. And he said it with with an expletive, which I'm not going to repeat, but you can go and take a look if you want. I'm sure it's out there. I mean, I cannot believe the situation that we are in that country. We had the opportunity for a relatively safe exit. Better yet, we should have just kept Bagram. We should have just kept it. I mean, I'm sorry. I understand we've been in quote war for 20 years, but the last year, 18 months, absolutely zero American deaths. And I had kind of an argument online with somebody. I listened to several, talk radio shows and things like that. And I happened to be in a couple of chats when I do. And I had a person who popped in and said, well, who's going to volunteer? Are you going to go? And I'm going to be honest with you. I am too old. The Army wouldn't take me. But I will tell you, my spirit is still there. My spirit is still there. I am literally sick at the idea that we are planning or even thinking about leaving Americans in another foreign country, and that it was so poorly planned that it's not even their fault that they're there. I cannot understand. I cannot even fathom what they must be going through to know that if they go to try and call out for help, help may not come. When you're out on operations and you're doing stuff, if there's no communication, it's a scary experience. It is a scary thought. If you are on a radio and you're trying to call out to find out if there's somebody else there, that you are going to have support coming either on its way or whatever, that is it is soul crushing, people. It is demoralizing. It is in that moment when you realize that you cannot talk to people or that they are not on their way, that you come to grips with the idea that you could be dying, that you could die. And I'm sorry, I don't like that feeling. I know nobody else does. There is not one single person in this world who could even sit here and say that they would love that feeling. I mean, all you have to do is watch depictions of it on TV, and the actors' anguish that they have is nothing close to the real thing. It is absolutely nothing close to the real thing. And here in America, we have been so far removed from the idea that we're not going to have support, that we're not going to get this. It's going to come as a shock to most people. And that's why you end up with situations like riots and people just going out of control and going crazy. All you have to do is look at any kind of footage from a natural disaster, Katrina as an example. If you look at those people are like going and grabbing stuff and they're trying to survive. Just knowing that you're not going to get any help is a complete shock to your system. And it's a shock to your desire to continue on. And once you find out that, yes, there is going to be some support and everything, that your spirit becomes uplifted. These people in Afghanistan right now, they may not even have that. If they're not at the airport by now, they may not get there. And another report that came out, which this is another thing. It's just like stacking cordwood. It's one on top of the other on top of the other. All I can tell you is this, that if you're trying to get out of a significant war zone and you're being told by your own government that you have to pay $2,000 to get out, that's just yet another shock to your system. I mean, I can't even imagine what these people are going through. I really can't. I honestly can't. And I'm sorry. I know this is just amazing. I'm going to have to keep a close eye and a close watch on this moving forward, because honestly, this is horrifying. This is absolutely horrifying. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. I don't care if you're a leftist or a right winger. I don't care. You do not leave American people in foreign countries ever without support. You just don't. And to not have a path to go and get them it is beyond comprehension. I mean, we had 2,500 troops there holding a fairly stable situation at the time. And now we've got somewhere, I think, in the realm of like 6,000 that are either there or on their way to try and stabilize. But none of them have orders to engage. They have rules of engagement in these kinds of things. And the rules of engagement right now are to not stop the Taliban from doing anything. This is just crazy. This is nuts. Absolutely nuts. Okay, enough on that. God, I've expended a lot of energy. I got to tell you, look, just on a little bit of a lighter note, when I first come into the studio, there are times where I try to get kind of an upbeat. I try to lift my spirit, get my blood pumping. Tonight, I was singing karaoke to a couple of 80s songs that I knew to just get myself hyped up for this. And my mood right now, just thinking about all of those things on Afghanistan, is completely opposite of what I started out coming in to do. But I did it. I came in doing that in order to make sure that I wasn't in complete, utter despair after that. Okay, so what does Biden want to focus on? And I'm sorry, tonight it's kind of the Biden show, but realistically, what does the administration want to focus on? Well, apparently about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, his Department of Homeland Security, and I'm sorry, I keep adjusting these earphones because I don't know if you can see it, but obviously because of the hat, I don't have them up. But I've been looking at doing some kind of an in-ear monitor system. Still haven't figured that out. But anyway, still haven't found one that I like. Hopefully soon it'll happen. That's a side note, side train. Wait a minute. Let me see. Can I do this one? Oh, nope, not that one. Here we go. So I got derailed. There we go. There's the train sound for the derailment. All right. So earlier, within the last 2 weeks, the Department of Homeland Security issued a statement, and they basically stated that anyone who is basically questioning the COVID response of the American government, who is questioning the election, and is talking about wanting Trump reinstated. And then also is, you know, I'm trying to think, going to celebrate 9/11 and, covers religious holidays or talks about religious holidays. Those three or four key points, they are labeling them as domestic violent extremists, DVEs. Now, I don't know this 100% for certain, but I think in terms of recent history, outside of what we know with the Japanese Americans being put into internment camps during World War II, I think this is the first time since that moment that we've actually looked at our own people and have labeled them as potential enemies of the state. I'm sorry, we have a right by our Constitution. In fact, we have an obligation and a responsibility to question our government, to question our leaders. It's written in the Constitution that we have the freedom of speech to be able to do just that, to question what is going on, to basically ask questions, to get information, to get answers. I don't know what this means, honestly. And this is something that I'm going to keep an eye on. I hope you guys keep an eye on it too. But I honestly don't know where this is going to go. But I have a feeling I know where it's going to go, but I'm not going to give you my thoughts just yet because honestly, I don't want to fill you with a whole bunch of bull hockey. I like to get facts and evidence ahead and be able to pass that on to you. But that being said, that is boding very, very, very bad that your own government is calling for people like myself, because I do question, calling us domestic violence extremists. Now, we haven't gone to the point of Australia yet. Now, I don't know if anybody's paying attention to what's happening in Australia, but especially in New South Wales. New South Wales is under new lockdown orders for COVID. And to be honest with you, they've been putting in kind of a police state, such that they pepper sprayed a young lady. She's 12 years old for not wearing a mask. They have quarantined or put people under house arrest in their homes, some of them with signs outside their doors. And to be honest, the Australians are seriously getting, they're getting upset with this. And so I saw a video today that came from Australia that these people are now overrunning some of the barricades that are out there in New South Wales, and they're taking on the police. Now, I want you to understand something. There's few places in this world that really stand for freedom. The UK is one, the US, obviously, Australia is fairly free. They have specific laws that I don't necessarily agree with, but for the most part, they're fairly free. They're part of the Western world. And it seems like a lot of these locations are going to, honestly, draconian measures in order to get to what is, let's be honest, we're going to be dealing with COVID for a while. If you look at the flu, which is a coronavirus as well, it's not equal. I am not saying that. YouTube, go ahead. Don't take me down for that. But at the same time, though, they are doing these draconian measures, and they're trying to point us toward a goal of zero COVID. And if that honestly is the goal, okay, why not define it that way? But nothing has really come out about this. And so I'm starting to wonder if things like, like this Department of Homeland Security memo coming out, and also the military I think it's Fort Polk, is starting to have the unvaccinated people wear a red armband so that they can see where it's unvaccinated. Even here in the state of Washington, there are measures that are being enacted and put in place to make it to where everybody has to be vaccinated. And honestly, I honestly don't see how this is going to, as far as Corona is concerned, or COVID, how it's going to go away with zero cases, if that's what we're focused on. I just don't see it. The death rate, the death toll has slowed. the vaccines have done a job of slowing down deaths. They have made it to where if you were likely to be succumb to it, that you would not not succumb to it, that you have a higher chance of living because of it. So I'm not going to argue any of that. In fact, there are several proponents, even the bad guy in Florida that they, Ron DeSantis has been, get the vaccine, get the vaccine, get the vaccine. There are vaccine advocates out there, and there are people who literally can't get the vaccine for any number of different reasons. But being forced to get the vaccine is where things have gone awry. And, Kirk from my YouTube popped up. He said Spanish flu took 3 years to get past. That's right. The Spanish flu did take 3 years for us to get beyond it. That is entirely correct. And this is something that we may be living with for quite some time, to be honest with you. So I really don't understand the goal here. I don't understand the end result. But to have somebody like who is a public figure, like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, I loved it. I loved his movies. I'm an action movie fan. I loved his movies. It was kind of cool that he became the governor, because it sort of followed along in Ronald Reagan's thing, where Ronald Reagan was an actor and then he became president. That, governor first of California, and then he became president. It was kind of cool to see that. But for him to go and to basically say, literally, screw your freedom, knowing all of the benefits that he has gained coming here to this country, it's kind of a slap in the face to those of us who are sitting here and we're trying to, make it in this world. And we've, he came from Austria. He was born in Austria, came here, started his life. He was able to make something of himself. He's become a huge, huge influencer, at least as part of the 80s and stuff. And for him to just literally out and out say, screw your freedom. Now, I don't care. He can advocate masks. He can advocate vaccines. That is perfectly on him. I don't have a problem with that. But for him to go and question the freedoms and liberties that he's been given by coming here, that kind of gives me pause. That really gives me a little bit of I'll be honest with you. I lost a little respect for the guy because of what he did, because of what he said, and what he appears to be, implying. I know it may have been a heat of the moment thing, but he's already feeling some of the backlash. I've already heard of at least one company that literally put out in a statement that they were dropping his products or something that he was selling with them or that he manufactured with them. I'm not really too sure. I'm not too clear on the details, but the press announcement basically said it had nothing to do with him advocating masks. It had everything to do with the fact that he was saying literally the statement, screw your freedom. I'm still confused as to why, somebody like, let's say for an example, somebody like Joy Behar is still here. Joy Reid, they're still here. When Trump was running, they said if Trump got elected, they would move, that they would go elsewhere. They're still here. This confuses me. And why does it confuse me? Well, it confuses me because honestly, I feel like if you're going to make a statement like that, you really should follow through with it. But they apparently didn't want to. Whoopi Goldberg is another one who said that she would leave, and they haven't left. If you really, really and truly hate the country or hate the situation that you're in, there are plenty of other places within this world that you can go. You don't have to go to some far off godforsaken country or whatever. You can go elsewhere. I mean, shoot, Tom Hanks did it. He's a Grecian, he's now a Greek citizen. So there are ways to go and he's reportedly a Greek citizen. There are ways to go elsewhere. I mean, shoot, you could probably go up to Canada fairly easily. I know that their immigration policy is really, really difficult to do, but I mean, I'm sure that enough money would cause it, for you to be able to do it. But the point is that if you're going to make those kinds of statements, make the statement, but then follow through with it. I just don't understand why somebody would just say, you know what, I'm done. I'm through. I'm going to leave and then not do it. and still benefit from the things that we have in this country. I've mentioned it before and I'll mention it again. I mean, there are so many people who have talked about this, who have talked about, they don't want to live here. Well, if you don't want to live here, then move. I mean, half the time it's celebrities. 95% of the time, I'm going to step out on a limb here, but I would say the majority of them are celebrities and well-known people. And they're saying they're going to move and they're going to leave. Go. Nobody has stopped you from leaving. And believe it or not, we have the technology that we could probably go and film your show out elsewhere in the world and pipe it back into the US if it was really still that popular. So anyway, I'm going to leave you on just this note. I'm going to leave you with this. For those of you who are patriots, for those of you who are looking at this and you're going, "Oh my gosh, this is horrible. This is absolutely horrible. I'm feeling the despair." Hang tough. Okay. Hang tough, because believe it or not, when World War II happened and Pearl Harbor got bombed, we turned factories that were normally for other functions into the war machine. It takes us a little while to gain traction, to get things going, but we have proven time and time again, history has shown from our inception at the revolution all the way till today, the American spirit is alive. It is alive and well. It may be buried right now, but I guarantee you she is coming back. She is going to show up when you least expect it. We need to hold fast. We need to stay the course. We need to promote, defend, and support the Constitution as it was written in order to maintain and come through what appears to be a very dark time right now. We need to keep pushing forward, get active, get involved. And honestly, I'm going to tell you, if politics or anything in your forte, get active, get involved, go to your local school boards, maybe run for a local office, go to, your county seat. Maybe if you live in a city, run for some kind of mayor office and stuff. I'm going to tell you right now, Dan Bongino says this. I agree with him. There are zero. Okay. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. I got to back it up. There are Republicans that are Democrats, but there are zero Democrats that are Republicans. And to be honest with you, neither one of them at this point is really that great. I look at it as vote out all the incumbents. I'm at the point where I don't even care what political party you're in. I think we need to get rid of all of the career politicians. Just get them all out. And if it takes you running and stepping up as a patriotic American, as one who plans to uphold the Constitution and continue our fight into the next generation, go for it. I say go for it. At least you can say that you tried, but hold fast in your beliefs. Don't let these people break you down. Hold fast in your beliefs. We will come back. America cannot just die on the vine in this short a time. It's not possible. Hold fast. Be prepared. Be ready to go when your time comes, because the opportunity will show up. I've got to believe that. I have got to believe that in my heart of hearts, in my soul. I've got to believe that is what's going to happen, because otherwise, if I don't, then I lose everything. I lose the channel. I lose everything. But I believe it. And I encourage you to believe it too. Hold fast, hold steady. We're going to get there. That is my final Whiskey Musings thought. Do me a favor, if you like the show, if you like the content, if you like what I've been talking about and everything, please go ahead and subscribe. I know YouTube may censor this. I don't know. I've got Spreaker. I do post the videos after I record them onto Rumble. And I'm trying to figure out, because Rumble does have a streaming option, but it's a little expensive for me right now. That being said, also listen on Spreaker. Do me a favor, check out my store, whiskeymusings.online. store.whiskeymusings.online. If you go to the store, buy something. I hear tell from the Captain Unicorn that the gaiters are absolutely wonderful. I do have masks there, and considering the fact that we're probably going to be back in masks or back in face coverings soon, across the board, for the most part, go ahead and pick one up, show your support for the show. I do appreciate it. All of the proceeds go in, and I know I didn't turn up the phone number tonight. I do have it, ironically I have it on, but I didn't turn it on because, or have you guys call because of the fact that I've been talking for way too long. But anyway, so yeah, Captain Unicorn just chimed in, says superb masks. So, go ahead and do that. Hit subscribe, follow me on Facebook, follow me on YouTube, make sure you get told the next time I go live, and we'll see you next time on the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Good night, everybody, and have a wonderful week.